What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Underdog Podcast. Today we are doing my first installment of my top 5 defensive players in this draft class. We are doing edge rushers today, and yes, this is a football channel, but I had to support the Celtics as they are playing the Nets today in Game 1. And happy Easter, everybody. Hope you guys all had a great day and spent it with all of your families. So I hope everybody had a great Easter. But now, first, I'll do some honorable mentions. Travon Walker did not make my list, which I think is going to be an unpopular take, but I'm not sold on him really. It's kind of weird to project Travon Walker the next level. He was really used as a contained guy at Georgia. Like, he was never really asked to like fully rush the passer. And I honestly think at Travon Walker's size, I think he's like 275, 280. He could like bulk up and play that like interior role, kind of like an Arik Armstead or a Solomon Thomas. Like, there's really a true question of whether or not he is a true edge coming out of Georgia. I mean, I think that's a serious question, because I think in a solid defense, he could be that Solomon Thomas or Arik Armstead, who is outside on, rush downs, like early downs, because he is a very, very good run defender, but then he moves to the inside for pass rush. I truly think that could be a role. And then another guy that didn't quite make my list is Arnold Ebiketie. I do think that he's a very good player. Reminds me a lot of, it's escaping me right now, but Ebiketie, I think day one could come in there and be a really solid day, like number 2 edge, as he really reminds me kind of like Charles Harris when he was coming out. He's got good speed to power, not as good of a run defender, as he's not as big as like like Travon Walker, but definitely a really solid pass rusher, has really good counter moves. Is going to be a solid guy from day one. So now, let's get into the top 5. Starting with my number 5 edge rusher, is going to be Jermaine Johnson, the second from Florida State. Senior Bowl, really, he took off of the Senior Bowl, man. Absolutely just exploded. He just killed everybody day 1, day 2 of the Senior Bowl, and then just did not play. Just did not play in the game, because like his agent's like, all right, we did enough, like, we're done. Really wasn't a full-time starter till this year at Florida State. He played like just over 400 snaps combined in 2020 and 2019, and then this year he played 736 snaps. So I think strengths for Jermaine Johnson is he has got tremendous bend for his size, and he really is able to like get underneath tackles even at his size of 6'5", 254. He sets a really hard edge. I think he's actually really underrated as a run defender. He's able to kind of set edge, force backs inside, and then shed and make a tackle. I think he's very, very good at that. I think a lot of people are talking about Walker. They're talking about Hutchinson, even some other guys. It's like good, really, really stout run defenders. And I think Jermaine Johnson can be one as well. I think that is an underrated quality in his game. And then he played a lot, actually, last season at Florida State. He averaged like 61 snaps a game, which is like unheard of for edge. Usually you have a rotation. So he did play a lot of football last season. And then his weaknesses, he's not the best athlete. He does have really good get off and bend, but he's not like off the charts athletic like a Walker or somebody else. He lacks twitchness at the position. He's not the guy that's going to make linemen miss in terms of like being able to act like going one way and then going the other. He's more of like straight speed, like off the edge, like, and using his bend. Again, also like when you have these guys who just break out as seniors, you're always worried. So he was a late breakout. And then he was a part-time player at Georgia beforehand, and then he came to Florida State and really broke out. So he could not get into that Georgia rotation, but that's not really saying much because that Georgia rotation was insanity. So I think another thing he could really work on is his hands. I don't think he's as active with his hands. He really just tries to use his get off and bend to get around. He doesn't really have any counter moves or anything like that. But I think there's so much upside with him because I think he can come in, be a really nice run defender from day one, and then maybe, a situational rotation pass rusher. And then once he's able to refine his moves, his counter moves, he will be a really, really good edge 2, maybe an edge 1 potentially. I think there's edge 1 upside with him. It's just, I think he's got a longer way to go than some of these other guys ahead of him. And then my number 4 edge, who would be number 3 if he did not get hurt, is David Ojabo. Ojabo really has only been playing football for like 4 years, I think. He's one of the most athletic guys in this draft class at the edge position. And his first season in 2020, he only played 26 snaps, played 534, and was really good opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Had 11 sacks last season, was very productive. He's a super traits guy. I mean, length, explosiveness, bend, they're all there. They're all what you look for in an edge rusher. And then he knows how to adjust, like, on the fly. I think for being a player who is so raw, he, already has the adaptability of counter moves. He doesn't have a ton, but he's shown that he's able to adapt. If something's not working, he will then go to a different move in his pass rush skills, which is honestly better than most of the people in this class at being able to hit a counter move on the opposing offensive lineman. And then he's obviously super raw. I mean, he's been playing for less than 5 years. He grew up in Nigeria, was playing soccer there. So he's very new to the game, very raw, and has a lot of room to grow. Again, being at his size, 6'4", 250, he's not going to be a run defender, at all. I mean, he's a liability in that department. He's probably going to be coming in the league, well, if he even plays this season, a situational pass rusher, and then mold him into that number 2 with number 1 upside. Ojabo really, again, he's not going to be any sort of run defender for you at all. He's sometimes thinks too much because he's new to the game. So I think with time, with reps, he'll be able to just react more. And then he has no power to his rush at all. I think if you can harness that into speed to power, this dude's going to be special. But right now he's just all speed off the edge. So he's going to need to develop some kind of power in his game over time. And again, physicality at that size is going to be tough. He might need to bulk up a little bit, but he's not the most physically imposing defensive end. I think he's he's way more of that speed, quickness off the edge, kind of like Jermaine Johnson, although I think Johnson has showed more power in his game. I would honestly, the only way I see him in the first round now with that Achilles tear is to a Baltimore. I think Baltimore really makes a lot of sense. Comp for Ojabo, really Odafe Oweh's really good comparison, came out last season. Deion Jordan is another guy that he really has a lot of a semblance of, who was the 3rd overall pick for Miami, a while back. So yeah, he definitely has that sort of profile there. And then my number 3 guy, who I think a lot of people are not talking about enough, because he doesn't have the highest upside, and he's not as flashy as an Ojabo, as a Thibodeau, as a Walker. But I really think this guy is he's the next just like really solid, like 15-year starter at edge rusher. I mean, because I think he can do it all. It's George Karlaftis from Purdue. I think a lot of, like I said, a lot of people are not high on Karlaftis because of the fact that he's not like super traitsy like the other guys. He's just not that guy. But he was a multi-year starter at Purdue. Veteran player. I think he's going to come in and be a really good edge 2 right away. Don't know if he'll ever be a dominant edge 1, but I think he can get there. Because I think this is the guy that's going to come in. He's going to work hard. He's like blue collar. He's just going to work hard, man. He's got a really good bull rush. I think he plays the best with power in this class, besides maybe Hutchinson. And he generates that through his lower body. He's really, really good at doing that. His versatility is a plus. I think you could line this dude up inside. Kind of like we talked about with Walker. Like I talked about with Walker, I think he could play like a stand-up edge outside on early downs and then potentially move him inside. I'm not as big on that though as other people. I like to see him stay on the edge full time. And then he has like serious thump to him. Like, I mean, he will knock people on their ass in the run game. I mean, he saw it on tape from time to time, on his tape. I think sometimes he tries to use too much speed, at his size, and that's not really his game. I mean, generating speed to power is something that I think he needs to work on. And sometimes he just tries to just do it with bend, and he doesn't have the bend of a Jermaine Johnson, of a Trevon Walker, of a David Ojabo. Like he doesn't have that type of bend. But I do think that if he were to, instead of using just pure speed to power more, I think he would be like even better than he is now. Definitely his length is not ideal. However, I think Karlaftis is such a smart player that I don't think the length is that much of an issue for me. He does definitely have shorter arms than any of those other guys we just talked about, but I think that he is smarter player than all those players. Sometimes he can get locked up in the run game due to those short arms, but again, I think he's going to be a good edge defender from day one in the run game. I think another big criticism is that he needs to increase his move arsenal. I think you see that a lot of times, but I think especially with Karlaftis being not as bendy, not as long, I think he definitely needs to be able to use moves and counter moves, to be able to win more consistently in that game. My comp for him is ironically another guy from Purdue in Ryan Kerrigan, who was really, really solid edge rusher for the Washington Commanders now for years. I mean, he was phenomenal there. So I think that's a really, really good comparison for George Karlaftis. And now we have my number 2. And this is number 1 on pretty much everybody's board. He was number 1 on my board for a while. Was my number 1 pick in my previous 2 mocks, but he's going to be my number 2 edge rusher here. It's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. And it's not because I don't think Hutchinson's a great player. We'll get to why I think my number 1 guy is better than him. But Hutchinson, this season really exploded, broke the Michigan sack record, 14 sacks, was incredibly productive, killed Ohio State. I had to throw that in there. Come on, man. He absolutely killed Ohio State. And where he's best at is his sequence. So one move into another. He's just he just will not stop. I mean, he's relentless out there on the edge. I mean, he's going to get to that pass rusher or going to get to that quarterback no matter what. He has really good agility for a guy his size, which is why he's so good at being able to counter against tackles, because that agility really helps him to change direction into a different move. And his explosiveness and strength through his frame is just incredible, man. I mean, he generates so much power through him. Off the edge, it's ridiculous. Going into some criticisms, length is poor for his height. It's below average for the position. He's a little bit like jerky. As a pass rusher, it's not always like, smooth coming off the edge. And then he was definitely a late bloomer. I mean, no one was talking about him as a first round pick until this year. So again, that's another, thing that that people look for. But I really think that Hutchinson, I think more than like Karlaftis, could be used inside as well. I mean, he's definitely got the size to do it. So, we could see a lot of these guys being very versatile, utilization in the league once they get there. I think he's definitely the best all around, like floor-wise coming in, but I don't think Hutch has the highest ceiling. I think Hutchinson's going to be I think he's definitely an edge one, but I don't think he's like that, Chandler Jones, TJ Watt, freak upside where it's like he could reach 20 sacks. I think he's more like 10 to 12, really consistent guy where you have occasional like Trey Hendrickson type, 14, 15 sack seasons for a couple years. I think Hendrickson's a decent comp for him. He had a similar athletic profile coming out of where did Hutch go to college, or where did I can't remember off the top of my head where Hendrickson went to college, but I think there's similar builds in terms of how they play at the next level. And then my number one guy who has been scrutinized throughout this draft process, I personally think it's not as much like, I just think it's like stupid that they keep scrutinizing him over effort and stuff like that. It's Kayvon Thibodeau. And I think, again, these two guys are top 5 value. I don't think it's a question. The reason why I have now gone to Thibodeau as my number one is Thibodeau really, I think, has the best upside out of anybody in this class and out of any position, like in general. Like, he has the best upside out of anybody in this entire class. And it starts with just his athleticism is nuts, man. I mean, he beat guys in college off of pure talent. I mean, not like, and a lot of people are like, take that as a criticism. It's like, this dude was so good, he didn't have to use traditional moves. I mean, he has a really nice bull rush, but other than that and a rip, I mean, he didn't really use anything else. He didn't use counter moves because he didn't have to, because he's that good. And I think where Thibodeau separates himself from the rest of this class is his first step. His first step is unreal. We're talking like Von Miller-esque first step. I mean, he's really like he plays at like 255, 260. It looks like he's 240 out there with that get off. I mean, it is truly Von Miller-esque, who is the best pass rusher get off I've ever seen play at the NFL level. He's built to play edge at the next level. He has broad shoulders. He has ideal length, ideal weight, ideal size, ideal athleticism. Like that. Thibodeau was meant to play edge at the next level. And for a guy that's that big, he's very flexible. He's very bendy, and he gets that corner more oftentimes than not. Excuse me. I think again, his pass rush plan. A lot of people see this as a con, where he doesn't have like a move arsenal. But I explain that he doesn't really have to use that. As soon as he gets to the next level, they're going to immediately work with him on having a plan. And then once he harnesses those moves that he's learned from the coaching at the next level, he's going to be nuts, man. I think sometimes he like focuses too much on like beating his blocker rather than the ball carrier in the run game. But you'll see this dude like chase guys down in the run game. I mean, he's a really underrated run defender in my opinion. And then sometimes his timing with his hands is inconsistent. But again, I chalk that down to this dude was so talented. He really didn't have to worry about any of that because he was able to just beat people off of pure like athleticism. And I think a lot of people are going to see that as a con, but I see that as a strength because if you come in that raw, because Thibodeau like is still super raw as a prospect, and you come in and you just like harness that into like ability to use pass rush moves, that is insane. Like his ceiling is like through the roof at this point. Again, I think his best, like strength in this class is his traits. I think he's an all-around edge from day one. I mean, he can play the run, he can pass rush, just unleash the dude. And then again, improvement is moves, which I think I chalked it up to he's just a better athlete than anybody else out there. And I think people are going to say, why do I have Thibodeau this high but not Walker? I think it comes down to, for me with Walker, Kirby Smart runs a really weird defense, and it works, don't get me wrong, but it's not a great, like, projection for, like, the next level. Like, look at guys like Lorenzo Carter, who I absolutely loved. He really hasn't, like, done much at the next level. Azeez Ojulari last season, who I really liked, really was only, like, had coverage sacks last year. I mean, we really haven't seen him do much. It's really like Walker was used as a containment at Georgia. He was never really asked to rush the passer straight out. So I think there's a big question mark of, can Travon Walker really truly harness that into pass rush? I mean, a lot of people are really high on Travon Walker. I'm not quite there yet. I have him as a like round 1-2 guy in this class, along with Arnold Ebiketie and Jermaine Johnson. And then I have true round 1 grades on Ojabo, Karlaftis, Hutchinson, and then Hutchinson and Thibodeau are top 5. I'm just not quite there yet with Travon Walker. I still think he's a good player. I think he's like top 35 on my big board. So, but I'm not about to hype at him at number 1 or number 2 overall. I'm just not there. So thanks for watching, everybody. I know this is probably going to be the most controversial video I've done so far. Leaving Travon Walker out and then having Thibodeau at 1. It's what I believe. But thanks for watching, everybody. Again, hope you guys had a great Easter weekend, great Easter Sunday. Spend time with your folks, and have a great day, everybody, in peace.